welcome to 5-Minute Bedtime Stories with Missy Lane. Tonight I want to read you a classic book. It's called Make Way for Ducklings, and it's by Robert McCloskey. I'd like to dedicate it to my friend Maya in New York. It's a little bit longer than 5 minutes, so this is a little bit longer of a bedtime story, but I think it's going to be worth it. I hope you all like it. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live. But every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles in the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles. So they flew on and on. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it. The very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. Looks like a good spot, don't you think? Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer. But the people on the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the Mallards followed them all round and round the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. That's not really a real bird on there, is it? No, it's just a statue. It's a little decoration on the back of the big boat. And that's probably a tour boat, maybe taking people through the city of Boston and showing them all around. "I like this place," said Mrs. Mallard, and they climbed out onto the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right here in this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. "But—" "Look out!" squawked Mrs. Mallard, all of a dither. "You'll get run over!" And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies with all those horrid things rushing about. We'll have to look somewhere else." A boy zooming past on his bicycle almost ran them over, huh? Whew, that was a close one. So they flew over Beacon Hill and round the State House, but there was no place there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. Then they flew over the Charles River. "This is better," quacked Mr. Mallard. "That island looks like a nice quiet place, and it's only a little way away from the public garden." "Yes," said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. "That looks like just the right place to hatch ducklings." So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt. All of their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until their new feathers grew in. But, of course, they could swim. And one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman named Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that, the Mallards called on Michael every day. After Mrs. Mallard had laid 8 eggs in the nest, she couldn't go visit Michael anymore because she had to sit on the eggs and keep them warm. She moved off the nest only to get a drink of water, or to have her lunch, or to count the eggs and make sure they were all still there. One day the ducklings hatched out. First came Jack, then Cack, and then Lack, then Mack and Knack and Owack, and Pack and Quack. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were bursting with pride. It was a great responsibility taking care of so many ducklings, and it kept them very busy. Do you see the little ducklings? Aren't they cute? One day, Mr. Mallard decided he'd like to take a trip to see what the rest of the river was like further on. So off he set. "I'll meet you in a week in the public garden," he quacked over his shoulder. "Take good care of the ducklings." "Don't worry," said Mrs. Mallard. "I know all about bringing up children." And she did. She taught them how to swim and dive. She taught them to walk in a line and to come when they were called, and to keep a safe distance from bikes and scooters and other things with wheels. When at last she felt perfectly satisfied with them, she said one morning, "Come along, children, follow me." Before you can wink an eyelash, Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack fell into line, just as they had been taught. Mrs. Mallard led the way into the water, and they swam behind her to the opposite bank. See how they're all swimming in a line, huh? All following the mama. And are there 8 there? Do you want to count with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, they're all there. There they waded ashore and waddled along till they came to the highway. Mrs. Mallard stepped out to cross the road. Honk, honk, went the horns on the speeding cars. Quack, went Mrs. Mallard as she tumbled back again. Quack, 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 went Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack, just as loud as their little quackers could quack. The cars kept speeding by and honking, and Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings kept right on quack, quack, quacking. They made such a noise that Michael came running, waving his arms and blowing his whistle. He planted himself in the center of the road, raised one hand to stop the traffic, and then beckoned with the other, the way policemen do, for Mrs. Mallard to cross over. Oh, good thing Michael, their friend, came along, huh? Now they'll be able to cross the street safely. As soon as Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings were safe on the other side and on their way down Mount Vernon Street, Michael rushed back to his police booth. He called Clancy at headquarters and said, "There's a family of ducks walking down the street." Clancy said, "Family of what?" "Ducks!" yelled Michael. "Send a police car, quick!" Meanwhile, Mrs. Mallard had reached the corner bookshop and turned into Charles Street with Jack, Cack, Lack, Mack, Knack, Oack, Pack, and Quack, all marching in line behind her. Everyone stared. An old lady from Beacon Hill said, "Isn't it amazing?" And the man who swept the street said, "Well, now, ain't that nice?" And when Mrs. Mallard heard them, she was so proud, she tipped her nose in the air and walked along with an extra swing in her waddle. Look down here at Mama Duck. Doesn't she look proud? When they came to the corner of Beacon Street, there was a police car with 4 policemen that Clancy had sent from headquarters. The policemen held back all the traffic so Mrs. Mallard and the ducklings could march across the street. And they marched across the street right into Public Garden. Inside the gate, they all turned round to say thank you to the policemen. The policemen smiled and waved goodbye. That was nice of the policemen, wasn't it? Yeah, they helped them to stay safe. When they reached the pond and swam across to the little island, there was Mr. Mallard waiting for them, just as he had promised. And when night falls, they swim to their little island and go to sleep. So that's where they stayed. That's where they ended up living, and I think they were happy. They lived happily ever after on that little island in Public Garden in Boston. Well, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed that story. Thank you, as always, for listening. It's time to sing our lullabies and then say goodnight. First, we'll do Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, followed by God Bless the Moon. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. And I see the moon, and the moon sees me. God bless the moon, and God bless me. And God bless you, boys and girls at home. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon on 5-Minute Bedtime Stories with Missy Lane. Good night.